A good Wednesday morning to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here on 13 WMAZ Plus for a look at your extended forecast. A little bit of better news each and every day, but we still have those pesky rain chances as we go into the afternoon and evening time frame every single day for your next 7 days. So we'll go ahead and break down your main headlines. The rain chances are continuing to remain scattered, which means that you have a good chance and a good likelihood of missing out on the rain each and every day. And if you do miss out on the rain, warm and muggy air is going to be present every single day. So our feels like number is going to be a little bit higher than what those actual temperatures do read. And afternoon showers and storms are going to be the form that your rain does come in every single day. Hopefully you're only dealing with a shower, but it's warm and it's muggy, so you can't rule out a possible strong storm, maybe even a severe storm, although we are not in any form of severe weather outlook. And I'll go into why that is, even if we still do have the potential for a strong or a severe storm. Well, this is the Gator Cam. This is something I've been playing around with quite a bit, so I was playing that out on our Sky Cam. Let me get back to Central Georgia here. But this is over in Beaumont, Texas. It's a little gator farm that they have over there. Let's take it back over here to our neck of the woods and right now. So plenty of blue sky, lots of sunshine as we are starting out this Wednesday. It has been a pretty immaculate morning. Not too much fog in the picture. We actually did see some overnight showers and some thunderstorms. Those fizzled out fairly quickly. So we've been left with predominantly dry weather to kickstart right smack dab in the middle of your work week. So you can see a couple of birds, or maybe those are bugs or wasps that are flying up here in the top left on your downtown Macon Sky Cam. Taking it down I-75 to the Georgia National Fairgrounds. Still a couple of clouds in the pictures, but overall you can see that a lot of the sunshine we got yesterday and so far this morning has continued to finally dry out the roads and the sidewalks all across Central Georgia. Plenty of green grass down off Cohen Walker Drive down in Warner Robins, and then taking it up to downtown Dublin where it is flowing smoothly, or traffic is flowing smoothly rather, and we're not seeing any of those pesky puddles in the picture that I was referring to as of this time yesterday on the roads. I was telling you to maybe take it a little bit slower through, because obviously any standing water that you continue to drive through, that can increase your risk of hydroplaning. So if we can go over to our next graphic here. There we go. We'll take a look at your visibility map, 10 miles far and wide, so giving you an idea of any fog that we had did fizzle out pretty quick, and it was allowed to lift up into the atmosphere fairly quickly, but we didn't see much in the way of fog early this morning. Temperatures are in the mid to upper 70s, some areas already to the 80-degree mark. 80 up here in Macon, 80 in Cochran, taking it down to a 81 in Unadilla, and then 82 in Dublin, Vidalia, and McRae for the warmest temperature approaching the midday hour here. We're not even at the 12 p.m. hour already, and we're seeing some temperatures that are a little bit warmer than the days past. Current temperatures all across the eastern half of the United States, somewhere mainly in the 70s, have some upper 80s down to the south and southwest of us, and 87 in New Orleans, which looks like it is the warmest temperature here at this hour. A little bit cooler back over into some areas of Texas, but they're going to be plagued by some cloud cover and actually some storms over there to the west today. It's not any approaching system that's going to impact us. We'll talk about what our setup is going to be here fairly shortly on our surface map. Here's a look at your dew point temperatures. A lot of that dark green color has continued to build in since we saw predominantly light green earlier this morning. So as we go into each and every afternoon, we will bring back the muggy air that you can wear, but during the mornings it may be a little bit lower, and we will see some more coverage of some light green. So not quite as bad as you do head out the door, but during the afternoon window, that's when we're really looking at that warm and muggy air to run a bit rampant. 75 and 76 are your dew point temperatures down in Dooley and Chris County right now, so that's where you're starting to get some very, very dark green. Hopefully we don't see them get much higher, but we have seen those areas, in fact Unadilla and Cordele, get dew point temperatures up to the 80-degree mark, even somewhere near 82 degrees as of last Friday. If we can keep that out of the picture, that would be very nice. But now that we are approaching the mid to upper 70s, some areas are feeling a little bit warmer, actually a good amount warmer, feeling like 87 in Dublin, feeling like 91 already in McRae, 87 in Gordon, 88 down in Unadilla, 86 in Cordele and Rochelle. Giving you an idea of what this afternoon has in store for these feels like numbers as well. Winds and wind gusts, pretty calm right now. A steady breeze about 3 to 6 miles per hour at some spots. Not going to look at many gusty winds throughout the rest of today. Here's your satellite and radar picture. Plenty of high-level cloud cover. It's not necessarily too dense in nature, not blocking too much sunshine, even if this cluster of what looks to be some thick cloud cover does move over your area. Nothing in the way of rain. Anything we saw in the form of showers and storms has moved on out towards the northeast, or it has lost anything that it can use in terms of some ingredients to continue to sprout up and continue to intensify. So let's talk about our setup that we do have going on right now. Lots of high pressure is what you see probably right off the bat. These blue circles with the H, that is going to be a lot of your drier air that is present. And it's present to the north of this stationary boundary, which does cut across the northern portion of the state of Georgia. You can see that this may have a little bit of motion as it goes throughout the rest of today because the eastern part of this boundary is a cold front. This still has a little bit of motion. So it could sag the stationary portion just a little bit towards the south today. However, it's not necessarily going to move too far into central Georgia. And I want you to remember this because this is going to kind of be a focal point of where the rain does fall and pop up throughout today. Because areas down along the boundary, number one, along this boundary, you're going to have a lot of lift. And that's what we continue to talk about. Any form of lift or forcing mechanism that you do have, that's going to continue to lift anything in the way of some of that surface moisture that we have. But also the warm and muggy air will still remain present to the south of this boundary as we go throughout the rest of today. We're continuing to get kind of a southerly breeze over the next couple of days, and that's going to contribute to obviously the influx of some moisture. But as long as we stay on the southern end of this boundary, that's what's still going to keep us in those afternoon shower and storm chances. We actually got into the upper 80s yesterday, believe it or not, about 2 degrees shy of average for this time of year. 70 degrees was our low, so going above our average low of about 67 degrees. Still nowhere near any of these records. 99 for the record high temperature way back in 1898, and then 1913 was our record low at 50 degrees. Haven't seen any numbers pop up a 5 in front of them in a couple of weeks, which is very good news. We did record almost 3/10 of an inch of rain at Middle Georgia Regional Airport yesterday. A little bit more of a cushion to keep us about a 1/2 inch above where we should be this time of year. Sunrise didn't change from what was in store as of Monday morning, so 6:26 yesterday and 8:42 was that sunset. Only about 8 or 9 days, I believe was today the 11th, so about 9 more days until we get to that longest day of the year on June 20th, which will be the official start of the summer season. However, just because we're not officially into the summer season, we definitely have that summertime feel in the forecast. You'll see temperatures soar into the upper 80s, and then it looks like this meteogram is hinting that we'll see a little bit of cloud cover, maybe even some rain to knock those temperatures down a touch from when we normally hit the highest temperatures that we see around 4 or 5, maybe getting into 6 p.m. But the feels like number is what you're really going to want to know. How does it feel when you are maybe making your way home later on this afternoon for any outdoor plans that you have this afternoon? 4, 5, 6 o'clock. Our heat index does top out at maybe about 94 degrees, but that's really just going to be up here in Macon. Some other areas may get into the mid, maybe even upper 90s for what their feels like temperature is. It's all going to depend on how much moisture you have, what your dew point temperatures are, and what your actual temperatures are. And the higher your dew point temperature does go up, each single degree as you get into the mid and upper 70s, it can have a little bit of an exponential impact on the feels like number. So today, a mostly dry morning. We did have some very early morning showers still in the picture. Those were quick to fizzle out, like I said, so we will continue to be dry until we get just past lunchtime. Then we're going to introduce those rain chances once again. Down here by the winds, want to note this because that's typically something I don't write there on the graphic. I normally have a bit of a direction, but when I type in that VAR, that's going to mean winds are going to vary in direction. So not coming in from one set direction. I normally have a west or a northwest component or maybe a southwest component to this. But winds are just going to vary at about 5 to 15 miles per hour. 15 is going to be your occasional gust. That's not going to be what the winds are consistently blowing at. How about 89 for a high temperature today? So that's 1 degree shy of average for this time of year. And yes, of course, we're going to continue to see this thunderstorm icon when we have warm and muggy air present in our forecast. So let's see what Future View has to say about those rain chances this afternoon. Still remaining predominantly dry past the midday hour, past lunchtime. around 2 p.m. is when we can start to see some light green dots, maybe some pockets of a little bit of yellow and orange down to our south and our southwest. It does look like we'll see our fair share of a couple of scattered showers, maybe even some low-end thunderstorms going in to the late afternoon and early evening hours. We do see a couple of thunderstorms that are a bit more widespread. They try to group together into maybe a little bit more of a cluster and impacting more areas. Some of those could continue as we go into the nighttime hours. This is at midnight later on tonight, and you can see, yes, some yellows and some oranges. Can't even rule a severe thunderstorm out of the cards. However, it does look like most of these are going to be your typical run-of-the-mill thunderstorms that we normally see during the summertime months. So not all that atypical to continue to have that thunderstorm icon each and every day. But this is very quick to once again weaken in nature, fizzle out, and completely pop off the radar whatsoever by the time you start out tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. So hopefully we get another beautiful image of the sunrise to kickstart your Thursday. It's the same song and dance where we will continue to see these scattered rain chances pop up after we get, or I guess after lunchtime rather is what I'm trying to say right there. The early afternoon hours into the late afternoon and into the evening time frame. This is 9 p.m. tomorrow night. And then we get into the nighttime hours where this is looking like the time frame for maybe the most widespread rain, maybe the most intense rain in nature in the form of these thunderstorms. But I do believe, once again, it's going to weaken just as quickly as it does pop up. I'm not throwing a severe warning out of the cards just yet. But once again, I think everything is going to remain of your typical thunderstorm nature. You'll just hear some rumbles of thunder. The winds may pick up for a little bit. You'll get an occasional heavy downpour. And then that will be it. It will have used up all of the ingredients that it needs in order to form. And there's not too much of it left as we go into the overnight hours when our temperatures are cooling and we're losing that daytime heating. So diurnally driven thunderstorms and showers once again for your Friday afternoon and evening plans. And that term diurnally, that's going to mean that heat of the day nature. So operating off the warmest temperatures that we do have available. And then there are obviously a couple of pockets of steadier and heavier rain for Friday evening. Still, it's nothing that you need to go cancel any outdoor plans for. If you have plans Friday evening, going along that for tonight, this evening, or your Thursday evening, still keep those plans and you're good to go. Make sure you have the umbrella. You're actually going to want to go ahead and keep that umbrella or the rain jacket kind of just in the pocket of maybe your door, your passenger side door, because it will come in handy each and every time you're heading out the door for the next couple of months. So be prepared if you do come across maybe a shower, maybe even a storm in nature, but continue to go about your plans because there is a good likelihood that you won't see anything in the way of rain over the course of the next 3 days, over the course of just today, but they are going to be possible each and every day, and it's better to prepare for the worst and hopefully expect the best. So obviously nothing to talk about on our storm outlook today. I did just want to show this to show you, number one, that we are not in a storm outlook for today. So the streak does end at 5 days in a row of being in some sort of severe weather outlook. We thought it was going to end at 4, and then the SPC went ahead and gave us a cover the bases level 1 risk for yesterday. That ended up panning out. We had a couple of stronger thunderstorms in some areas. Nothing that did pop up a severe tag whatsoever. So the streak ends at 5, which would make it our second longest streak in about just as many weeks, because we had a streak of 7 days in a row just about 2 or 3 weeks ago of having a severe weather risk in central Georgia. But going off that, we don't see ourselves in a day 2 risk, and we also do not see ourselves in the day 3 risk whatsoever. So it does look like, okay, maybe our chances of organized severe weather are out of the cards. And yes, that is the case. Organized severe weather. Once you get into this typical summertime setup, you're going to see these heat of the day showers and storms, and you can't even rule a severe thunderstorm out of the cards, but it's not organized in nature. They're very unpredictable where they do pop up, and the SPC does not take this into account when issuing these level risk. Otherwise, if that were the case, just about every single day for the summertime months would be at least a level 1, could even be a level 2 risk. But obviously it happens so frequently, and that's the name of the game in the summertime months. So that's why we are not put in any sort of organized severe weather outlook. If you do catch a stronger severe thunderstorm, going to be very isolated. Could impact one end of the county, other end of the county is not going to see anything. And the good news is, just as quick as it does pop up, it will begin to weaken. Typically, these summertime severe thunderstorm warnings only last about 30 to 45 minutes, kind of the duration of the initial time frame that they are issued until, and then they weaken in nature. They don't quite have all of the parameters to meet that severe criteria, but still are a little bit strong. Over the course of about an hour, hour and a half, that's about how quick it does take for maybe some of these summertime storms to really weaken in nature and completely dissipate. So afternoon high temperatures, what are you going to be treated to if you don't see anything in the way of rain? Because I want you to go about your day like you aren't going to see any rain. Like I said, just be prepared in case you do come across a shower, you see dark clouds off in the distance. Go ahead and make plans to head indoors and kind of ride that rain shower or that thunderstorm out. Upper 80s, near 90 degrees is the story for the next 5 days. Virtually unchanging. We haven't seen much change over the last couple of days, so believe it or not, we're still going to hover just below or right there around average for this time of year. So these temperatures, they could be a whole lot warmer. We could see temperatures in the mid to upper 90s. Some days have even popped up records of 103 degrees all time. Thankfully, we have gotten nowhere close to that. And this is going to be plenty warm enough because the humidity is going to make these numbers feel a little bit warmer. Taking a look at your muggy meter, humid and very muggy. These are the two ranges that we don't necessarily like to be in, but we're typically going to be in this range for the summertime months. Our dew point temperatures are going to hover in that dark green shaded area. So that's what I refer to on that dew point temperature map that I popped up just a little bit earlier. Once you get into the upper range of the 70s, start to even get close to the 80-degree dew points, well, yeah, that's when it really enhances your feels like temperature. A dew point temperature of 80 degrees could enhance your feels like number by maybe about 10 to 15 degrees or so. Not looking at dealing with any of that. However, some local areas will probably be dealing with some feels like numbers that are in the neighborhood of about 10 degrees warmer than what their actual temperature is. And as long as we hang out in this dark green area, we will continue to see feels like numbers that are warmer than that actual temperature. The only day that it looks like we have some relief is actually Sunday, maybe a slight downtick. But typically when you get to the end of this muggy meter, kind of the last 3 days, things are a little bit more uncertain. We'll see a lot of fluctuation with that. And I have noticed that this muggy meter does trend a little bit lower than what we actually do really see in terms of the dew point temperatures. So I would expect a muggy atmosphere for the next week ahead. We don't have any signs of any big weather systems that are going to impact us and bring in some cooler and maybe some slightly drier air. So let's talk about those feels like numbers. What should we feel like during the heat of the day today? Now, number one, you're only going to see two locations here in central Georgia, Macon and Dublin. Feeling like 93, 91 in Dublin, possibly at 5 p.m. later today. Some local areas are going to feel a little bit warmer because you see Albany, which is a little bit closer to Cordele. You may be feeling like the mid 90s. I wouldn't even doubt that we see some upper 90s in store later this afternoon. But hopefully if you can catch some rain, that rain cooled air is going to arrive very fast. And it's not going to allow us to reach the very tip top of what our temperatures could be and what our feels like temperatures could be. Now going to tomorrow afternoon, you see a 91 in Macon, 95 in Dublin. Once you start to feel like the 90s, obviously it's kind of the same. It's once you really get to that triple digit mark that things get a little bit unbearable outside. Same story tomorrow, feeling like the mid to maybe even upper 90s in some areas, but definitely feeling 90 plus all over central Georgia. Now going into Friday, do we have any relief in sight? Does not look like it, but maybe some rain cooled air arriving a little bit earlier because you can see this splotch of some orange within all of this deep red color. And these colors can get worse. They can get into the pink category, and that's what would be feels like numbers above the 100 degree mark right there. So thankfully we're staying shy of that, but still feeling plenty warm. Make sure you're staying hydrated. Make sure that you are applying sunscreen and taking care of yourself along with your pets and going into those occasional areas of shade, because this is getting into one of the bigger warm spells that we've had so far this year. I know we've had some days with forecasted highs a little bit higher than what we have in store, but this is going to be a good stretch of that summertime pattern, really bringing us into the official start of the summer season on June 20th. So let's take a look at the long range models. I already hinted at it a little bit, but the short answer is no. We do not have anything in the way of relief coming over the next couple of days, really the next week in time. Scattered rain chances still popping up during Saturday afternoon. That continues on Sunday. That continues on Monday. And normally I would go into more detail on this long range model, try to pick out what features I'm seeing that are trying to organize over to the west maybe. But this is just the same story all over the southeast. We're all going to be warm. We're all going to be humid. We're still going to have southerly flow as we go throughout the course of this week, really into the end of the weekend. But then once we get to Monday, we are going to switch up the flow, and that may have a couple of implications for our forecast. So when we have this southerly breeze, this southwesterly breeze, it's just going to continue to push Gulf moisture or Atlantic moisture all into our neck of the woods right here. Southerly wind component, obviously, those are the two bodies of water that are fairly close to us. And our neighboring states have the same thing going on. Alabama, what's immediately to the south of it? Of course, the Gulf. What's immediately south of Mississippi? The Gulf. Louisiana, same story. Panhandle of Florida, the same story. But then areas over towards the east and up the Atlantic coast, they will continue to get that warm moisture that is present in the Atlantic Ocean as opposed to the Gulf. Doesn't really matter, but that's going to lead to a very summer-like pattern with pop-up showers and storms. Now Monday, we could be looking at a little bit of a switch in flow. We could start to see winds coming in from the west, and that would allow for some of these organized systems over toward the west to maybe make a push back down into the south and the southeast. So what we were talking about yesterday, if you caught Ansley Parker's Weather IQ, those MCSs, those waves of showers and thunderstorms that are a little more organized than your run-of-the-mill summertime forecast, those could be maybe coming in towards the beginning of next week. This is still about 5 days out as it does stand right now, but this is the guidance that we are seeing as of currently, and we'll continue to monitor it very closely. But you know the drill with those from the last couple of weeks. They're very hard to pin down in terms of timing, in terms of how well they stay organized. So it's just something that we'll kind of have to play by ear where they do organize and their kind of estimated time of arrival if they make it this far over here into central Georgia. We go into Tuesday all the way into Wednesday. There's still plenty of moisture that's hanging around this area. But finally Wednesday actually looks like maybe not as widespread coverage of rain. Maybe some kind of system could be organizing to just leave us out of a day with some rain chances, but go ahead and get used to rain chances each and every day. Like I said, we're getting into the summertime months. I know they're a little bit higher than we typically would see, but you're more than likely going to see a 10 or a 20% chance of rain each and every day on your 7-day forecast for the foreseeable future, unless we really get an influx of some slightly drier air. Muggy air is going to become more of the normal as well. So let's take it to your 7-day forecast, and then I want to revisit a little bit of today's setup and then talk about what's changing into tomorrow and Friday, because I realized I mentioned it but didn't really touch much on it into more detail. You will see temperatures upper 80s, maybe around 90 degrees for the next week. The morning low temperatures not going to vary much whatsoever either. They're going to be in the upper 60s, maybe around 70 degrees, the low 70s, 40% chance of a shower or a thunderstorm each and every day. Once again, we will be keeping an eye out for any storm that intensifies and does look severe in nature, and we'll be covering that warning if it does pop up. But the chances are a lot lower, and if you do see any of those, they're going to be a lot more isolated, meaning they're only going to impact smaller scale areas as opposed to these widespread organized systems that we have been seeing as of recently. So just go ahead and continue about your daily plans. Obviously, this 40% chance of a shower or a thunderstorm should not discourage you, because that also means there is a greater than 50% chance. There is a 60% chance that you don't see anything in the way of rain whatsoever. I think you'll have your fair share of days that do stay nice and dry. They will just be warm and muggy, a pretty typical summertime day. But if you do come across a shower or a storm, like I said, having the rain gear ready to go, because you obviously prepared for it, because I've been reiterating that just about each and every day, that's a good, wise decision. But obviously, if it is a thunderstorm in nature, when thunder roars, you need to head indoors. So you'll hear things getting loud off in the distance. You'll see dark clouds approaching. You can continue to kind of just have a contingency plan, and it's going to be pretty short-lived, more likely than not. You stay inside for about an hour, 2 hours, and then you can continue outside for any outdoor plans that you do have. And a good tool to utilize in order to spot maybe where some of those more intense thunderstorms are, is our live radar loop here on the Weather Impact 24/7 channel. You can check out our live radar if we're in any form of severe weather risk, our current temperatures, our feels like temperatures, everything that you need to know to kind of get a good idea of what you're heading out the door to, along with some loops of what we work on during the week, our weather breakouts, talking about that mesoscale convective system, those MCSs. Ansley Parker did a great breakout on that, and that's looping here on our 24/7 radar stream. You'll have each of our updated forecasts from the morning show, from midday, from the evening show, from the nighttime shows. We continue to update those every time we do clip it and we download it, so you can get the latest forecast here on this stream as well. It's definitely a great tool to utilize, and especially for planning out these scattered rain chances each and every day for the summertime months. Because if you definitely want to know if there is a thunderstorm that is close by that you may need to pack things up a little bit early, head inside for, and then you can head back outside for. So let's go back to today real quick, because I did tell you I wanted to mention that very quickly. And it's nothing that really changes anything that I did just tell you. But as we go throughout today, I want you to pay attention to where these rain chances are popping up. So we can see a couple of showers up around the metro Atlanta area. We continue into the nighttime hours. That's going to kind of be that frontal boundary I was talking about, that stationary boundary. It may push a little bit farther south, and maybe that would leave out some of our northernmost counties out of the rain chances for today. But if you're on the northern side of that stationary front, that's going to lead to a little bit of drier air being present, not as much in the way of rain. It may push into central Georgia a little bit, but right now it still looks to remain a little bit to the north of us. Either way, most of central Georgia still is going to be in that warm and muggy air sector to the south of that boundary, and that's why you're seeing all of these rain chances pop up in the southern half of the state as opposed to behind the banner up in the northern portion of the state. And it's not just us. Other states, other neighboring states will be dealing with that kind of same forecast. Areas to the south of the boundary will have those shower and thunderstorm chances. Areas to the north, not so much. Just going to be dealing with a warm and a sunny day, maybe some partly cloudy skies in your forecast. But going into tomorrow, we do see that boundary push back up to the north, and that's why you will see scattered shower and storm chances all over the state of Georgia, Alabama, getting up into South Carolina, as opposed to maybe just kind of a half and half deal that we look to have in store for today. And then that front is going to continue to push up farther and farther to the north, and then we're going to be left without any weather system impacting us. So a sector of some warm and muggy air will continue to be present each and every day, and each run of future view is very likely going to look pretty similar to what you do see for the next 3 days as we push it out to Saturday and eventually Sunday and eventually Monday as we get into next week. So go ahead and plan on these rain chances each and every day. But like I said, a good likelihood that you won't run into anything in the way of rain, and you'll just have a typical warm and muggy summertime day. So we'll keep you updated, and I'll be back here once again at 10:30 tomorrow if we do see any changes with the forecast. But that's kind of a detailed explanation of our current setup, what we're expecting as we go into next week. We could be dealing with more organized systems, maybe even an MCS or two, like I was referring to, those waves of showers and thunderstorms that have kind of clustered together, have more widespread impacts. But that's a little bit far out to very confidently determine as of right now. We'll continue to keep you updated on that. So thanks for tuning in for this edition of the Extended Forecast, and we'll be back here, like I said, 10:30 sharp tomorrow for another update on your weekend forecast.